Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. Let me first say that it is good to be back here in person for the first time since March of 2020. With that said, however, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, and for that reason, we would ask everyone in the room to please keep your masks on unless you are speaking, at which time it can be removed. As we have a quorum of board members present, I'd like to call today's meeting to order. For the record, I would note that in addition to the 7 board members, we also have representing our ex officio members, Fred Strathmeyer, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you all for joining us. It'd be nice if I had unclipped this. As the first order of business, I'd like everyone to please join me and stand for a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
By way of announcements, the board held its executive session yesterday, Tuesday, October 12th, to discuss personnel matters, ongoing litigation, and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. I'd also like to announce that, unfortunately for the board, today will be Commissioner Knodl's last public meeting, as he has been appointed to the Delaware River Port Authority Board of Commissioners to serve as the organization's Deputy Chief Executive Officer effective November 1st. Obi, what can I say? Even though we have known each other since long before either of us served on this board, it has been a great pleasure for me personally to serve with you here, and I'm sorry to see you go. With that said, our loss is Delaware River Port Authority's gain, as I am sure your service to the community there will be exemplary, as it has been here in all of the other public service positions you have held over the years. I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't know if there are any other board members that wish to make any comments.
Madam Chair, just one. Obi, as the Madam Chair said, you've been a wonderful addition to the organization and to the board. We will miss your stories about your weightlifting, but this brings you a little bit closer home to your wonderful baby. But we will miss you and miss your friendship, and it's all our pleasure.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to second what both you and Commissioner Logan said. We were going to miss you, and I know it's probably going to be great to be home a lot more often with your new baby, and just good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, if there are no other comments, we have a resolution commemorating your service to the board, Obi, and I'd like to ask for a motion on the resolution for Commissioner Knodl.
Madam Chair, it's my honor that I move the board approve the resolution recognizing the service, and I'm not going to say his formal name, of Obi. He's like Cher and Madonna, you know, just goes by one name to the board.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Madam Chair, can I just say something just for the record?
Certainly, you can even remove your mask.
Oh, okay. It's been a while. I just want to say thank you. Thank the gaming board. It has been a pleasure. I've learned a lot, met new people. I can just say, from a boy from Philadelphia to serve on this commission, and now having a son, something that he can one day come back and know that his father was a commissioner for the gaming board is something that I really hold highly. It's one thing when somebody tells you, but when you actually get to see it and do it, it's something really nice. So I appreciate everybody here, even the new members. This is a great board, great organization. It runs smoothly. from Kevin to Cyrus, I don't want to forget everybody's name, to Steve, but all of you guys make this agency run smooth, and we are the best gaming board in the country. And I would put that on anything. But if anybody ever comes over to Jersey, you're still gonna have to pay the toll. No free tolls, no free tolls. But just want to say thank you, and I'm sure I won't be a stranger. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have consideration of motions to approve the board meeting transcripts and minutes.
Chair, Commissioner Mustia moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the July 14th, 2021 meeting.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston, seconds.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted. Now we have a motion to approve the transcript and minutes of the August 11th, 2021 meeting. May I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the minutes and the transcript of the August 11th, 2021 meeting.
Commissioner Regan, seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted. We will now hear from our Executive Director, Kevin O'Toole. Kevin?
Good morning, Chair Smiler and members of the board. It's really great to be back at council table and to present before the board in person. I'd like to thank Doug Harbach and Richard McGarvey from the Office of Communications, and thank Administrative Director Claire Yantis for preparing our public meeting room to greet the public once again and to ensure social distancing. For my executive director's report this morning, I would like to express my personal appreciation, as well as that of the staff, to Commissioner Obi Kernodle for his service to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board for the past 4 years. It doesn't seem like a coincidence that Obi's tenure with the board began only several days before the Gambling Expansion Act of 2017 was signed into law on October 30th or 31st of 2017. So Obi's tenure began with lots of changes in the board's role as a gaming regulator, with all the new casinos that would be coming to the Commonwealth, and new gaming activities such as interactive gaming, sports wagering, fantasy sports contest, and video gaming terminals at eligible truck stops. Obi, you provided a very steady hand in working with your colleagues on the board to make thoughtful and deliberate decisions over these past 4 years. These decisions have contributed to the significant growth of casinos during your tenure. Decisions that also advanced the casino industry through new forms of gaming, as well as a heavy reliance on new technology, and in fact, cashless technology, which the board has led a lot of jurisdictions in moving forward with that technology. So we're very thankful, Obi, for your service to our agency, and we wish you the best of luck in your new job with the Delaware River Port Authority.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's my report for this morning.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin. Next, we have the Director of the Office of Financial Management, David Wren. Dave?
They want to slide that chair up a bit.
Good morning, Chair Smiler and members of the board. I have two parts to my presentation today. First, I'll provide an update on board expenditures through the first quarter of the fiscal year. Second, I'll provide an overview of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. Board expenses for the first quarter of the fiscal year, or the period July through September, were $8,660,000. 88%, or $7.6 million of expenditures, were for payroll, with the remaining 12%, or $1 million, for operating and fixed assets. Overall expenditures are $971,000, or 12.6% higher than last year's expenses through the first quarter. Most of this increase occurred in personnel, where payroll expenses were $817,000 higher. Last year's payroll expenses were significantly lower due to casino closures due to COVID. In addition, we have now increased staff due to the 3 casinos that have opened since that period of time. Payroll expenses of $7.6 million in the first quarter included $4.5 million in salaries, $2.9 million in benefits, and $178,000 in leave payouts for former employees. Benefits as a percentage of salaries were 61%, and the board carried an average complement of 306 employees for the quarter. As I mentioned, operating and fixed asset expenses totaled $1,043,000. $479,000 of this total went for rentals and leases. Other major operational expenses included $179,000 for services, which includes interagency billings for IT, human resources, and payroll support services, and fees for fingerprints used in background investigations, and $160,000 for equipment, which largely reflects annual service contracts and subscriptions for software and hardware. That concludes my remarks on first quarter expenses. If there are, I'd be happy to take any questions. If not, I'll move into the 2022-23 budget.
Any questions for Dave? I just have a question about personnel. Are we back to pre-pandemic levels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have been for a while.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
The proposed requests for the 2022-23 budget are $48,189,000 for administration. This includes the oversight of the Category 1 through 4 casinos, iGaming and sports wagering, $475,000 for video gaming terminals administration, and $100,000 for fantasy contest operations. The administration request of $48,189,000 is $1.5 million higher than the current year due to contractual raises and additional casino compliance staff required for the full year costs of Category 4 casinos opening this year, and partial costs for the Category 4 casinos anticipated to open next fiscal year. The board's budget includes $42.9 million for personnel and benefits and $5.3 million for operating and fixed asset expenses. The personnel budget includes funding for up to 350 positions, and all the increase is in the personnel category. The operating and fixed asset budget of The operating and fixed assets budget is $5.3 million, as mentioned. The majority of the budgeted costs are for real estate leases, investigative expenses, and telecommunications costs, the traditional cost drivers of the operating budget. The proposed budget would be funded through a combination of $7.7 million in restricted revenue, including application and license fee revenue, and chargebacks of gaming lab costs to manufacturers, and $40,489,000 in drawdowns from escrow accounts funded by casino operators. The video gaming terminal, or VGT, budget includes funding for up to four full-time equivalent positions. The personnel component of this budget request is $450,000, and the operating portion is $25,000, and will be used primarily for travel and investigative fees. The budget is equivalent to the current year appropriation. Finally, the fantasy contest budget request is $100,000 and includes funding of $90,000 for personnel and $10,000 for operating, and would cover approximately one full-time equivalent position. This budget is also equivalent to the current year appropriation. That concludes my remarks on the budget. I would be happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I would appreciate a motion to adopt the budget request.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the fiscal year 2022-23 budget request as described by the Director of Financial Management.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is adopted. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay. We next have the Office of Chief Counsel. Steve Cook.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Today, the board has 3 petitions before it for consideration. Each petition will be decided on the documentary record by agreement of the parties. In each of these matters, the board has, in advance of today's meeting, been provided with all of the documents filed of record prior to today. The first petition before the board today pertains to Nasia Lanham's request to reapply for a gaming employee occupation permit, which the board is considering as a petition for reconsideration of her application denial, nunc pro tunc. Briefly, in October of 2019, Ms. Lanham applied for a gaming employee occupation permit. Thereafter, in December 4th of 2020, the Office of Enforcement Counsel issued a recommendation of denial letter recommending that this application permit be denied for Ms. Lanham's failure to cooperate with the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. Specifically, Ms. Lanham failed to provide documentation showing that she had addressed outstanding federal taxes due for the tax year 2017, in which she owed $2,332, and also documentation to show that she had filed or was not required to file a 2018 federal tax return. Ms. Lanham never responded to OEC, and in February of 2021, the board issued a denial of her application. 6 months later, this past August 16th of 2021, Ms. Lanham filed her request for reconsideration. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer in new matter stating that Ms. Lanham has now submitted an updated copy of her 2017 IRS transcript showing that she has made substantial payments on her tax debt. And she has also presented evidence verifying that she was unemployed in 2018 and therefore did not need to file a federal tax return. She's also provided additional information to show her tax compliance in 2019 and 2020. And based upon these developments, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to her request to have her suitability for licensure re-examined. And that's the matter now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant Nasia Lanham's petition as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the matter be sent back to the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement for any additional investigation of her application that may be required.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
The next petition before the board today pertains to the Office of Enforcement Counsel's request to revoke Vincent Burgise's gaming employee occupation permit. Mr. Burgise was employed as a table games dealer at the Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. The uncontested facts in this matter are that on October 4th, 2020, while Mr. Burgise was a patron playing blackjack at the Parks Casino, another patron notified casino personnel that the dealer was overpaying him. It was thereafter discovered that the dealer at Parks and Mr. Burgise, in fact, worked together as dealers at Rivers, Philadelphia. A review of the dealer's conduct showed that Mr. Burgise and the dealer had contact in the parking lot of the casino, as well as interacting with each other during the dealer's break, and that while the dealer was dealing to Mr. Burgise at the blackjack table, she had overpaid him $595. Security thereafter reviewed the dealer's actions the day before this was discovered and found that Mr. Burgise had again been overpaid by the same dealer on 7 occasions, resulting in a $1,170 loss to the casino. Then, on October 8th, 2020, Mr. Burgise and the dealer were seen again engaging in the same conduct, with the dealer overpaying him $190, to which he obviously was not entitled to receive. Mr. Burgise and the dealer were criminally charged for their actions. Mr. Burgise was suspended from his employment at Rivers, Philadelphia. Relative to the criminal charges, he was accepted into the Bucks County ARD program, where he remains at this time involved in that program. In January of 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a revocation complaint. Mr. Burgise requested a hearing, thereafter requested several continuances, but ultimately withdrew his hearing request, thereby allowing the board to today decide this matter on the documents filed of record. And this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board revoke Vincent Burgise's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The final petition before the board today is a request for removal from the involuntary exclusion list. By way of background, on March 9th, 2015, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Myland Adari on the involuntary exclusion list after it was discovered that on July 2nd, 2014, while at what was then the Sands Bethlehem Casino, Mr. Adari dropped a bag of cocaine on the gaming floor. He was thereafter charged with possession of a controlled substance, banned from the casino, and consequently, on August 5th, 2015, the board placed him on its exclusion list. In August of 2021, Mr. Adari filed his petition to be removed from the list, stating that he'd matured since the events of 2014 and has subsequently remained out of trouble, and he regrets his actions from what is now 7 years ago. Since it's been over 6 years since his placement on the list, without incident, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to Mr. Adari's request, and that is the matter presently ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant Myland Adari's petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next matter before the board today pertains to 5 unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals or businesses: Cash Service Centers II, Flick Incorporated, Omar Alexis Amen, Peter Anthony Cohen, and Philip Michael Cahill. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to any of these requests, and as a result, if the board were to grant same today, they'd be doing so without prejudice to each of these requesters, and these matters are now all ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next before the board for consideration are 3 reports and recommendations received from the board's Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the complete evidentiary record in each case, have been provided to the board in advance of today's meeting. Additionally, each person that is the subject of these reports and recommendations have been notified that the board would be taking the matter up today, and that they could come forward and briefly address the board if they so chose. If any of these persons are present, I'd ask them to come forward when their matter is called. The first report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Vandy Kuhn. On April 11th, 2018, Mr. Kuhn was issued a gaming employee occupation permit to work as a table games dealer at the Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. On October 19th, 2020, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint to revoke Mr. Kuhn's gaming employee occupation permit, alleging that while he was dealing at a hybrid roulette table, Mr. Kuhn colluded with 2 patrons by interfering with the roulette ball, thereby changing the outcome of the game. Testimony and evidence presented at the hearing showed that on January 18th, 2020, Mr. Kuhn arrived at the hybrid roulette table to relieve another dealer despite never being trained or certified in the game of roulette. Mr. Kuhn asked for and received instructions about running the game from the dealer he was relieving. However, immediately after the dealer left the table, Mr. Kuhn accidentally locked the computer screen while showing the number 20 as the winning number at the table. The prior dealer returned and tried to assist in unlocking the computer screen, but was unsuccessful in clearing the computer, and thereafter Mr. Kuhn attempted to look for a table game supervisor to assist him. The table game supervisor thereafter appeared and successfully reset the game. However, subsequent to that, Mr. Kuhn, for reasons that are not clear from the record, rolled and stopped the ball, repeatedly placing it in the number 20 spot on the wheel. At approximately the same time, surveillance showed 2 of the patrons arguing with Mr. Kuhn. A floor supervisor eventually appeared at the roulette table and confirmed number 20 as the winning number, despite the fact that the ball was placed in number 20 by Mr. Kuhn. Thereafter, the 2 patrons cashed out vouchers totaling $2,775 and left the table. Mr. Kuhn testified that he'd worked at the casino since 2018, and that prior to this incident, he only dealt card games, and in fact, he had never been trained in roulette. Also, in the record is a copy of the Rivers Casino disciplinary report relating to this incident, showing that Mr. Kuhn was guilty of a level 1 minor policy offense in that he made several mistakes in dealing the hybrid roulette game on the night in question. The disciplinary report does not conclude that Mr. Kuhn was conspiring to cheat with other patrons. After hearing all of the evidence presented, the report and recommendation issued in this matter recommends that Mr. Kuhn's permit not be revoked and that the Office of Enforcement Counsel's complaint for revocation be dismissed, given OEC did not meet its burden of proving by a preponderance of evidence that Mr. Kuhn was participating in a cheating scam, but rather that he was acting in a manner consistent with his not understanding the workings of a hybrid roulette table. OEC thereafter filed exceptions to the hearing officer's conclusions. The entire matter is now before the board for consideration. Again, the recommendation of the hearing officer is that the enforcement action be dismissed and that Mr. Kuhn be allowed to maintain his permit.
Any questions or comments from the board? Steve, it was confirmed that Mr. Kuhn was never trained for this particular roulette operation?
That's true, yes.
Okay. All right. No other questions, and may I have a motion, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner will move that the board adopts the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearing and Appeals regarding the revocation of Vandy Kuhn's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Mr. Kuhn be allowed to maintain his gaming employee occupation permit.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next report and recommendation before the board today is a request for removal from the video gaming terminal self-exclusion list. Specifically, on May 24th, 2021, an individual with the initials CZ submitted forms through the board's website asking to be placed on the VGT self-exclusion list and the interactive gaming self-exclusion list, each for a period of 1 year. 17 days later, CZ submitted his request for removal from certain self-exclusion lists in that he believed he mistakenly signed up for some lists on the board's website. Specifically, he indicated that he believed he signed up incorrectly for the VGT self-exclusion list and the casino self-exclusion list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to CZ's request. A hearing in this matter was held on August 4th, 2021. Enforcement Counsel appeared at the hearing and presented testimony and documentary evidence. CZ contacted the Office of Hearings and Appeals and indicated he could not attend the hearing due to a work conflict, but he did not object to it occurring in his absence or ask for a continuance. At the hearing, OEC provided the testimony of the board's director of compulsive and problem gaming regarding the process of someone placing themselves on one or more of the board's self-exclusion lists online. Specifically, the evidence showed that the board's website will take an individual to the form for placement on one of the various lists only if the individual initially selects that desired option. Additionally, the evidence presented showed that CZ, in fact, did not place himself on the casino self-exclusion list as he thought he did, but that he completed the online self-exclusion process, excluding himself only from interactive gaming and VGT gaming. To be clear, CZ wants to remain on the board's interactive self-exclusion list, and as a result, the question before the board today is only whether he should be removed from the VGT self-exclusion list. After hearing all of the evidence presented, the hearing officer issued a report and recommendation recommending that CZ's request for removal from the VGT self-exclusion list be denied. And that's the recommendation before the board.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding CZ's petition for removal from the VGT self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the petition be denied.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Thai Pham is the final report and recommendation before the board today. On April 19th, 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Pham on the board's involuntary exclusion list, alleging that he conspired with a table games dealer at the Parks Casino and was allowed to remove losing wagers while gaming. A hearing in this matter was held on June 24th, 2021. OEC appeared presenting testimony, documentary, and video evidence. Mr. Pham appeared and testified on his own behalf. The evidence received at the hearing showed that over a 2-day period, while Mr. Pham was playing Pai Gow tiles, the dealer would allow him to remove wagers he clearly lost. This conduct resulted in a $4,200 loss to the casino. Mr. Pham argued that the wagers in question were treated by the dealer as a tie or a push, and that he was entitled, therefore, to keep the wager. Based upon the evidence received, the report and recommendation issued in this matter recommended that Mr. Pham be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list for colluding and cheating with the dealer. Mr. Pham filed exceptions to the report and recommendation, again denying that he improperly removed wagers. He stated that it was his understanding of the game of Pai Gow tiles that if a bet was lost, the wager was collected prior to the tiles being removed, but if a bet was a tie or a push, the tiles were removed first and the patron was allowed to take his wager off the table. He again argues that the dealer treated these wagers as pushes by taking the tiles first, so he took his chips off the table. He does not dispute, however, that the wagers in question were all in fact lost. And as a result, the hearing officer concludes that OEC's petition should be granted and Mr. Pham should be placed on the board's exclusion list. And that's the recommendation before the board today.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the placement of Ty Pham on the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Mr. Pham be placed on the exclusion list.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
And, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted. Thank you,
Close
Steve.
the Office of Chief Counsel.
Appreciate it. And next, we have the Bureau of Licensing Matters with Director Sean Hannon. Sean?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Before the board today will be license consideration of one interactive gaming manufacturer, one gaming junket enterprise renewal. In addition, there will be 939 principals, key employees, gaming and non-gaming employees, as well as qualifier applicants. Finally, there will be consideration of 16 gaming service providers. First for your consideration is approval of an interactive gaming manufacturer license for DesignWorks Gaming PA LLC. DesignWorks is an Arizona-based company that is a developer and supplier of software games in the interactive gaming sector. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order approving the interactive gaming manufacturer license for DesignWorks Gaming PA LLC.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board grant the interactive gaming manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston, second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion carries.
Next, for your consideration is the renewal of the Gaming Junket Enterprise license for Gameri Gaming Group, LLC. Gameri Gaming provides customer travel and entertainment amenities for casino guests. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation of the company, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board to consider the order to renew the license of Gameri Gaming Group, LLC.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the Gaming Junket Enterprise renewal licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
In addition, there are principal and key employee licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 5 principals, 4 key employees, and 1 qualifier. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the principal, key employee, and VGT principal qualifier licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
There are also temporary licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of a temporary license for one principal and 11 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Canoto seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next are gaming permits and non-gaming registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 617 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits, and 249 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Canola moved that the board approves the applicants for gaming employee occupation permit and non-gaming employee registration as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
There is also a recommendation of denial for one gaming employee, one non-gaming employee, and one VGT establishment employee. The applicants were notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified timeframe. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with orders addressing the applicants who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the orders approving the denials.
Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each instance.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves the board deny the gaming, non-gaming, and VGT establishment employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matters for your consideration are withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 21 gaming and 11 non-gaming employee applicants. I ask that the board consider the orders approving these withdrawals.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board grant the withdrawal of key gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next, we have an order to certify the following gaming service providers: Allied Building Corporation, Brucelli Advertising Company Incorporated, Momentum Hospitality Mount Airy LLC, doing business as Guy Fieri's Mount Pocono Kitchen, Bistecca by Il Molino, and Pizzeria Montagna. Pippa Group LLC, doing business as Bistecca Steakhouse and Wine Bar, Rothralf Sauer LLC, and U.S. Integrity Incorporated. I have provided you with a draft order and ask the board consider the order certifying these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the gaming service provider certifications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 10 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
This concludes the Bureau of Licensing matters.
Thank you, Sean. We will now hear from Chief Enforcement Counsel Cyrus Petrie.
Good morning,
Cyrus.
Madam Chair, members of the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 8 matters today for the board's consideration, consisting of the one consent agreement, 3 suspensions, and 4 involuntary exclusions. First matter under the Office of Enforcement Counsel section is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee Greenwood Gaming Entertainment, Inc., doing business as Parks Casino. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow. Representatives for Parks are present, and at this time I would request that those individuals introduce themselves for the record.
Brian Schroeder, SCHROEDER, Chief Compliance Officer, Parks Casino.
Michael Davis, DAVIS, Security Manager, Parks Casino.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. John Crow, CROHE, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement reached between Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment Incorporated, doing business as Parks Casino, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel regarding an underage gaming violation. On September 16th, 2020, at 11:26 a.m., an underage individual who was 18 years of age at the time of this incident entered the Parks Casino parking lot in a gray Saturn vehicle. At 11:30 a.m., the underage individual attempted to enter Parks Casino via the beer garden, but was turned away by Parks security. At 11:37 a.m., the underage individual entered Parks Casino via the COVID screening exit doors at the valet pickup, while Park security had their backs turned to the door. At the time, the park security officers were checking in other patrons who were entering the facility pursuant to COVID screening protocols. The underage individual accessed the gaming floor and began gaming at 6 different slot machines between 11:42 and 11:59 a.m. At 12 p.m., the underage individual met with another casino patron, later identified as the underage individual's grandfather, at Foodie's Restaurant. At 12:24 p.m., the underage individual exited Parks Casino via the valet entrance, and after entering his vehicle, the underage individual threw firecrackers out of his car window while driving through the Parks parking lot before driving off the property. The underage individual was identified via investigative means known to the Pennsylvania State Police. Upon identification, Parks Casino discovered the age and the gaming activity of the underage individual and self-reported the incident. The underage individual did not consume any alcoholic beverages at Parks. As a result of this incident, the underage individual pled guilty to summary disorderly conduct and summary unlawful to permit persons under 21. The underage individual was also permanently banned from the facility. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Parks Casino respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, that Parks pay a civil penalty of $10,000 as well as $2,500 in administrative fees for costs incurred by the board staff in connection with investigations into this matter.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the Greenwood representatives if they have anything to say. However, before I do that, if there are any non-attorney witnesses who will be speaking, I'd ask that you stand to be sworn in by the court reporter.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, nothing but?
I do.
I also would ask anyone speaking to state and spell your name again for the court reporter. And with those formalities out of the way, Greenwood, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Brian Schroeder, SCHROEDER, Chief Compliance Officer for Parks. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As previously stated, it's kind of a pleasure to be back. Wish it was under different circumstances, but it's nice to be back in person before this group. Parks does not disagree with any of the facts recited by OEC. We would just like to point out that the individual surreptitiously entered the valet area, noticed the COVID screening protocols, waited for them to help do the temperature check, provide mask, and snuck in. We discovered him in the parking lot, reported to PSP. The investigation led to his age being discovered, and we self-reported it. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, as would Mr. Davis, who was the security manager on duty that day.
Is Mr. Davis going to speak, or just,
No,
responding to questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions.
Okay. So I would ask if anybody on the board has any questions for either party, please. Okay,
I do,
Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Logan.
Thanks, it's good to see you, too. Cyrus or John, how was the $10,000 fine developed?
$10,000 fine is set by precedent with the board. Since 2015, the fine for underage gaming has been $10,000. That's usually around about between $7,000 and $8,000 for access for gaming, and another $2,500 to $3,000 for accessing the gaming floor. In this instance, we did not factor in the fact that the individual was not discovered until he left the casino and threw firecrackers in the parking lot, which brought the attention of state police, and that's how they discovered the individual was underage.
Did he win big, or what was the firecrackers about?
He just was 18 years old, driving his car around, throwing him out the window. That's pretty much what. And our vehicle rover saw it, reported to surveillance, and that was the chain of events that led to
And thanks
PSP.
for self-reporting. We appreciate that. When he went to the first entrance, did he produce an ID and you guys caught him, or what happened?
The beer garden is not an entrance, so he was trying to enter an area it's an outdoor facility. He was trying to enter there. He was told it's not an entrance, at which point he left that area. I believe he got back in his car. Surveillance followed him, but when he gets in his car, surveillance then has a problem following the vehicle around. Then he entered back into the valet.
Well, again, I applaud you for self-reporting. It's just my personal opinion that absent COVID, you probably wouldn't have gained entrance. So I just think that the fine's a tad high. And again, that's just my personal opinion.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Jennifer?
I just have one. This individual, whether he's banned later under the casino by the gaming board, but is he banned from your casino?
Yes.
The firecracker incident?
Yeah, he's banned on our property exclusion. He's also in the PGCB. Is he on your list as well?
No.
No, okay. He's just on our property exclusion.
Okay, and that applies to all your properties?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, and I agree with Commissioner Logan that I applaud you for self-reporting. That's the right thing to do. But even though this is based on underage, an underage issue, my concern is somebody entered without going through the COVID protocol, so they could have been a COVID carrier of any age that entered your casino that could have resulted in personal harm to patrons and employees. Was there any corrective action taken with the security folks to make sure that this did not occur again in the future?
I'll take the initial and I'll hand it over to you. Our Director of Security provided pre-shifting at all the security meetings, and Mike can go, Mr. Davis can go into a little more detail. Pretty much it emphasized with our security staff almost a military point of view of keeping your eyes forward so you can periphery see both the entrance and exits to kind of cover that. We also had the issue, a bigger picture of, since smoking was banned, people were leaving the building to smoke cigarettes and come back in as another layer to that. So we had that pre-shift, and Mike can talk a little bit more about it. We did not have a reoccurrence of this while COVID was happening, of a person entering like this. So, good.
Both security officers were disciplined as a result of this, and as he said, they were distracted, and the underage was looking for that opportunity. When you watch the tape, he snuck in behind him. So the volumes of people coming in, the two security officers started handing out masks. They're doing temperature checks as well as checking IDs. So unfortunately, this individual snuck past him that day, but like you said, we pre-shifted that beyond, and unfortunately, it didn't happen again.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Connolly seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Commissioner Logan votes no.
With Commissioner Logan voting no, we still have a majority, and therefore the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next three matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the suspension of one gaming employee occupation permit and two non-gaming employee registrations issued by the board. The complaints have been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Good morning, Thomas Monahan with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Sharia Blocker. Ms. Blocker had been previously been employed as a beverage server at Harris, Philadelphia. The Bureau of Investigations Enforcement was notified that Ms. Blocker was arrested by the Philadelphia Police Department and charged with possession of intent to deliver a controlled substance and possession of a controlled substance. These charges remain pending. Ms. Blocker is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry, and at this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Sharia Blocker.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Cannolo move that the board approve the suspension of Sharia Blocker's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Sarah Colasar, K-O-L-E-S-A-R, Assistant Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Ronald Brown. Mr. Brown had been employed as an EVS attendant at Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Mr. Brown was arrested by the Pittsburgh Police Department and charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault and 1 count of disorderly conduct. The charges remain pending at this time. Mr. Brown is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Ronald Brown.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the suspension of Ronald Brown's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
John Crowe, C-R-O-H-E, once again for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter for the board's consideration is a complaint to suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Zahir Young. Mr. Young had been employed as a security officer at Valley Forge Casino Resort. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Young was arrested by the Phoenixville Borough, Chester County Police Department, and charged with possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance, conspiracy, possession of an instrument of crime, possession of marijuana, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. These charges remain pending. Mr. Young is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit held by Zahir Young.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the suspension of Zahir Young's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and their licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of the inimical conduct may be placed on the board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
John Crowe, C-R-O-H-E, again for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Douglas Corbett Jr. on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Corbett left his 11-year-old child unattended in his vehicle in the parking garage for approximately 18 minutes to engage in gaming activity at Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. A roving Pittsburgh security officer discovered the child 2 minutes after Mr. Corbett left the vehicle and stayed with the vehicle until Mr. Corbett was located on the gaming floor by Rivers Pittsburgh security and returned to his vehicle. No criminal charges were filed in this matter. Mr. Corbett was permanently evicted from the property. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Douglas Corbett Jr. on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, just a comment. I want to thank Rivers Pittsburgh. The system worked. I think you mentioned it was 2 minutes that the roving security officer, that's all we're asking is for additional security and cameras to keep eyes on these folks. I mean, I sound like a broken record. I can't imagine leaving a child in a car, but nonetheless, it worked, and I want to thank Rivers Pittsburgh.
I agree, Commissioner Logan. That's exactly what we've been trying to advocate for. So, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Douglas Corbett Jr. to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Urias Williams on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Williams impermissibly removed a $100 wager from the gaming table after he lost while playing blackjack at Rivers Philadelphia Casino and placed the $100 chip into his sweatpants. Mr. Williams was apprehended by security and escorted to the Security Command Center, at which point Mr. Williams, unprompted, emptied his pockets and took off his clothes. However, the $100 wager was not discovered. Mr. Williams was permanently evicted from Rivers Philadelphia. He was not criminally charged for this matter. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Urias Williams on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Urias Williams to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted. It's nice that he was so willing to
Take anything.
What? He didn't take anything, but so willing to voluntarily remove his clothing so they could check him.
Well,
Okay.
he didn't remove everything because we think that's where the chip was. Yeah. This wasn't worth the $100.
Well, duly noted. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Michael Rowland, R-O-L-A-N-D, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter for the board's consideration is a petition to exclude Jamila Jackson. Ms. Jackson left 4 children unattended in the Rivers Pittsburgh Casino parking garage for approximately 40 minutes. The children were ages 2, 10, 13, and 13. While on patrol of the parking garage, River security staff observed the 4 children alone in the vehicle. Ms. Jackson arrived alone with the children. She then met another individual on the gaming floor. During the visit, she stood at the craps table where that individual was located and gaming, but Ms. Jackson did not engage in gaming. Ms. Jackson and the individual left the property together in Ms. Jackson's vehicle. No charges were filed. Ms. Jackson received a 1-year ban from the casino. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Jamila Jackson on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner
I
Logan.
do. I guess I missed this point. Just a 1-year ban?
That's true. The property gave a verbal 1-year ban to actually both individuals. They based that upon their failure to cooperate with the questioning at the end of the evening and the leaving the property.
How about leaving a...
That's a property ban, Commissioner Logan. It's not
Okay.
our ban.
No, I understand that. Is that, Kevin, is that do we have any influence over that? I mean, the person wasn't cooperating, so they banned them for a year. How about leaving a 2, 10, 13, and a 13-year in a car at 4 a.m. when it's 36 degrees out? I mean, how about, that may be a better reason to ban them for more than a year.
No, I agree with you. That's why we're excluding them. But we'll deal with Rivers Pittsburgh on their procedures.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you, Cyrus.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Jamela Jackson to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next matter on the agenda is a request to place Phaeton Trice on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Trice left 2 children unattended in a vehicle in the parking lot of Valley Forge Casino. The children were ages 5 and 8, and they were unattended for approximately 30 minutes. A patron discovered and pointed out the vehicle where the minors were located to Valley Forge security. Security approached the vehicle and found the 2 children sitting in the back seat. One of the children then called their father, Mr. Trice, who was still inside the casino. While in the casino, Mr. Trice was observed placing sports wagers and gaming at a craps table. Mr. Trice was not criminally charged for his actions. Mr. Trice was permanently evicted from the property, and the matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Phaeton Trice on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Knodel move that the board approves the addition of Phaeton Trice to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank Commissioner Knodel for his service and for all his support over the years. You'll be missed. And with that, that concludes the Office of Enforcement Counsel's portion of the agenda.
Thank you. Well, that concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, November 10th, 2021, at 10 a.m. at this particular location. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Madam Chair, in honor of our friend Obi, I move to adjourn.
Go seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are now adjourned. Thank you very much.